Welcome to this edition of On the Scene. I'm your host, Tim Kelly. Today we're coming to you from Western Tidewater Regional Jail, where we're going to go inside and talk with Superintendent Chris Smith to find out all the inner workings of the facility, including the rehabilitation programs that are in place to help inmates housed here. Stay tuned. Welcome back to On the Scene. We're joined now by Superintendent Chris Smith here at the Western Tidewater Regional Jail. Superintendent Smith, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about the history of the facility. I mean, again, this place has been here for a little while, but talk about kind of how it came to be and also what area that it governs or is jurisdiction for the facility.
Okay, approximately 25 years ago, the state of Virginia came up with a plan to cut cost, and part of that plan was if two or more jurisdictions would come together to form a regional correctional facility, the state would fund 50% of the cost of that facility once it was built, and they would also assist with the operational expenses. And in our situation, a little over 20 years ago, Isle of Wight County, the city of Suffolk, and the city of Franklin came together and joined together and built the Western Tidewater Regional Jail.
Right.
And that jail serves all three of those jurisdictions. It was approximately a $20 million project, and the state picked up $10 million of that. And the state also provides funding each year for us to run the facility. So it's really a benefit to all those jurisdictions, and it reduces the cost to each one of those jurisdictions as well.
Now, what type of inmate do you serve here?
We have all custody levels of inmates here. Maximum security inmates who are awaiting trial or have been sentenced on felonies, minimum custody inmates for DUI charges and maybe some violations of city ordinances, and also some medium security inmates as well, maybe some property crimes, some nonviolent felonies. Basically, once an inmate is convicted of a felony, the state has 60 days to remove him from the facility. And sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. It really depends on the space that the state penitentiaries have available. So we have all custody levels here. We also hold approximately 100 to 175 inmates for the United States Marshal Service. So those are federal inmates, and that allows us to gain a little revenue and assist in offsetting the cost to the jurisdictions that we service.
Now, what is the typical, I know there is a typical answer to this question, but the typical stay for someone here? I mean, what is the maximum duration? I mean, you mentioned again the felony folks are moved on, but I mean, as far as how does that work?
Right. If an inmate is convicted of a misdemeanor, it can be anywhere from, maybe a 5 or 10 day sentence up to a 1 year sentence or a 12-month sentence. So usually we like to say inmates don't stay here any longer than 12 months or a year. Some felons, if they have several felony charges and they're appealing those charges, they may stay after a year. The state penitentiary system or correctional system won't take them until they're finished with all their charges. So it really depends on how long it takes the court system to go through and complete all the trials in reference to their charges.
As superintendent, what is your role here? What do you do with the operation of the facility?
Basically, I'm similar to the CEO of any large organization. I'm responsible for the budget, the finance, and all the daily operations within the facility. I have a senior management staff, and I meet with them pretty much on a daily basis, and we make sure that we're going in the direction that we're supposed to, and that any problems that come up as far as large equipment items having to be replaced, or any emergencies, or any special inmates that we have that might need a little extra attention or extra security precautions. So basically, I just make sure the daily operations of the facility comply with all the laws and the standards set forth by the state of Virginia, and that we're operating in compliance with the standards set forth by the Department of Corrections for Virginia, who is our regulatory agency.
What about staffing? I mean, how many folks do you have working here?
Total staff is 165 people. We do have some contract staff. We have contractors that take care of our maintenance services within the building, and also some contract staff that take care of our food service. And we do have contracts with several outside agencies, the Western Tidewater Community Service Board. We have a contract with a doctor and a dentist for the facility. But we employ 165 individuals here at the facility.
I know one thing in looking at some statistics, this facility is run to where your per cost per inmate is really on the lower side. You're definitely on the good side of that margin if you're looking at. How is that accomplished, and what kind of factors into that when it comes to figuring up that ratio?
what happens with that is that basically when we do our budget each year, we put forth our budget and we look at our revenues and expenses, and after we've put together all our revenues and expenditures, we look at what the difference is, and then we split that up proportionally by number of inmates in the facility to each of the jurisdictions. And Suffolk being the largest jurisdiction, they would pay a little more than the two other jurisdictions. How we're able to keep the cost low here at the facility, one way is we're able to contract, because of the number of inmates in the facility, with agencies to take care of like our food service. And you know, our food service, that allows, they have greater buying power as a national contractor, so they can keep the food costs down. We're also able to do that with our maintenance services unit as well. And because of their buying power, if they have to repair something within the building that's a high ticket item, usually they can get that for a lower price. The main way we keep the cost down to our jurisdictions is we have a contract with the United States Marshal Service. We also have one with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and we have an intergovernmental service agreement with any federal agency. And we hold inmates from all three, from the Federal Bureau of Prisons, the U.S. Marshals, and also sometimes Immigration and Customs Enforcement. And they pay us a per diem to hold those inmates, and that allows us to bring in about $4 million in revenue a year. So that keeps the cost down to the localities. And also we run what I consider a very efficient organization. And you know, we're always aware of the budget and cost-cutting measures, and so we're able to keep the cost low to the jurisdictions. And I believe in 2010 we were the second or the third lowest cost per inmate per day facility within Virginia.
Now, how many inmates can you house or do you house here on a regular basis?
Right now we're housing just under 700 inmates. We have 1,070 beds within the facility. I believe prior to my arrival at this facility, I was told they had 900 inmates at one time in the facility. You have to leave a percentage of beds available just for rotating inmates around. You're not always going to get you know, the specific number of maximum, medium, and minimum security inmates, so there has to be a little wiggle room within the facility. So we could comfortably hold 900, maybe 950.
Now, I know obviously it's situational, but are there certain periods of the year where that number would go up just based on the time of year, or is it kind of just always an ebb and flow and dependent upon situations that are kind of happening outside the facility?
It really depends. Recently, actually, we've seen that the inmate population is slightly decreasing, and usually it stays pretty much on an even keel. Sometimes in the winter months you'll see it rise slightly. In the summer you may see it go down a little bit. We've noticed that with our federal inmates, the closer it gets to the end of the fiscal federal year, we see those numbers decline a little bit. And it seems like when the federal budget is, the new budget's brought in, we see it increase a little bit. So there are some trends there.
Now, what is it like for the typical inmate that's here? I mean, what is his or her day like?
The majority of the inmates, once they come into the facility, they're screened, and we determine what their custody level is. We use something called an objective jail classification system, and that's nationally recognized by the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Prisons. And we use that. That puts them in a specific custody level. Depending on that, of course, a medium security inmate has, you know, some more privileges than a maximum security inmate. But the majority of the inmates, in the morning, they all get up and they're fed around 6 o'clock. They have to clean up their housing areas. Once that's done, we turn on the telephones in their area. They're issued some different board games or playing cards. The TVs are cut on, and at that time, then some inmates within the facility have jobs that they do, so some of those would go off to the kitchen or to the laundry room. We run several programs where we give minimum security inmates to the jurisdictions for, you know, they work with Public Services unit of the City of Suffolk, and we have some that actually have jobs that go to their jobs. So it depends on the inmate, but for the average inmate that's not in the work release or the workforce program, they eat, they get up, their day starts. If they're in a dorm area, they clean that up, as I said. If they're in an area with secured cells, they're brought out of their cells, clean up. They can come into what's called their day room area. And then we also have several programs that run within the facility. The inmates, when they're here, are able to get their GED,
Right.
go to Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, adult education. There's probably over 25 programs that we run here. So inmates that are in those programs, different times throughout the day will go to the program. Different times throughout the day they have scheduled recreation. We have some outside recreation areas that they'll go out there and maybe get an hour of recreation there and then a return to their housing area. And so it's a lot of things going on.
Right, right.
They eat lunch, and then on weekdays after dinner, about 11 o'clock, they're locked in their cells if they are in an area that has secured cells and the lights are dimmed down and it's lights out type time.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, we're going to take a short break and come back with more on the scene, and there's a lot of things still going on with the facility. Superintendent Smith mentioned about some of the programs as far as work release and working on GEDs, just to name a few. But we'll get a little more into that and also talk about a recent appearance by the facility on the Beyond Scared Straight program on A&E Network. So we'll talk about that and a whole lot more when we return. Welcome back. We're joined again by Superintendent Chris Smith here at the Western Tidewater Regional Jail. And Superintendent Smith, let's talk about some of the inmate programs within the facility.
Okay.
Specifically, you have the work release and your workforce program and also some in-house work that some of the inmates are doing. Talk about kind of how that is tiered and how an inmate who's here can take advantage of those particular aspects to get out and get some work done.
Okay. We start off with the in-house work program, inmate worker program, and inmates provide a large amount of labor here at the facility, within the facility. They provide labor to cook food, they provide labor to clean up the facility, do some small maintenance repairs. And what we do is we look for the model inmates in that program, and the inmates that show they can take responsibility and do a good job, we move them to our workforce program. And in that program, we train staff from the city of Suffolk and some of the staff from Isle of Wight County and how to supervise these inmates. And they come on a daily basis and pick up several inmates. And these inmates go with the city of Suffolk, maybe their public works. They go to the Isle of Wight Animal Shelter, and they perform work at those locations.
Right.
And those inmates are provided at no expense to the city. The city's not paying them, and the facility, we're giving them a few minor incentives for doing that. And if they do well in that program, then we do have contracts with certain jobs throughout the community that we can actually place them in a paying job. Right. Where they'll receive a check, and we take a small amount of that check for running the program, and then any fines or courts they have would be taken out of that check. If they owe child support, that's taken out, so that they become a working person in the community, receiving a check and giving back to the community. And basically we would drop them off at their job site, and we check on them throughout the day, and at the end of the day we bring them back to the facility. And both of those programs, the workforce program provides labor to the jurisdictions at no cost, and so it's a cost savings for the jurisdiction. The work release program allows the inmates to get out in society and pay off their fines, get some of their debts lowered, and when they actually get out of our facility, they actually have a job that they're already in. They keep that job. Right. And so it's a very successful program for us here at the facility.
And I'm sure that's part of the rehabilitation nature of what you're doing here, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
And anybody that we can return to society that doesn't come back into the facility is greatly reducing the cost to all the jurisdictions we service.
Now, I know earlier we were talking and you mentioned GED programs and Alcoholics Anonymous, which I guess you might consider improvement programs for them. What are the type of offerings for that, and what type of participation do you typically get among the inmates that are housed here?
We have a large number of programs here, and we get quite a bit of participation from the inmates. And when they come in the facility, they're screened, and the screening officer makes a recommendation based on some of the background questions that are asked. And that maybe they need, if they have an alcohol program, to go into an Alcoholics Anonymous program. Right. And all our programs are very well attended. And in fact, we have one that's offered from a grant, and it's provided to us from the UP Center, and it's a fatherhood program, and that has become so popular that there's actually a waiting list for that program. Right. And I believe the Virginian pilot is following that program from somebody once they're in the facility, and when they get out of the facility they're doing several 8-page mini article on that at this time. So there is a great number of participation. The GED programs, last year we graduated 11 people within the facility. It was the first year we had females participate and they got their GED. So all those assist in you know, making somebody a more productive person and giving them a better chance to return out into society and be a productive part of that.
Now, is there a charge to the inmates who participate in those programs?
No, the in-house programs, there is no charge, and the work release and workforce program, there's some minor charges to cover the cost of the staffing and things like that.
Now, for an inmate who's here, what are the visiting hours for their family or relatives, friends, whatever, to come to see them? How does that typically work?
The visiting hours are 7 days a week, and it depends on where the inmate is housed within the facility.
Right.
And each inmate gets one visit a week. It's a 20-minute visit, and we'd like to offer you know, more lengthy visits, but unfortunately with the number of visitors and the number of inmates we have within the facility, that's just not possible.
Right.
So.
Now, do you think it helps as far as having, with the inmates here, again, you're talking about a jurisdiction area that really is immediately right here, certainly in Suffolk, but to have, you know, family and friends accessible for them, that way they don't feel like they're just isolated and completely away from society? Do you think that plays into that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's very good, and that they have family and friends here to support them.
Right.
It seems like the inmates that get visitation, you know, over my 25 years in the business, it seems like they're calmer and we have less problems with those. And visitation, just like several other things within the facility, are a privilege, and they don't want to lose that privilege. So it keeps them, keeps their behavior in a good fashion.
Now, I know we mentioned outreach or programs for the inmates themselves. I know one of the things that was a very unique opportunity for the facility and yourself was for it to be featured on the Beyond Scared Straight program on A&E Network. Talk a little bit about how that experience went. Of course, that show is where you have juveniles that are out there that are having some issues. Their parents, and you explain the process well, make a recommendation to the facility for them to come in, and they get a very real crash course in what life is like on the inside, so to speak. But tell us a little bit about the process and also how the taping of that show went.
The taping went really well. We've been running the program for a number of years.
Right.
And the taping for A&E, they taped over in the city of Portsmouth, and they had heard that we also had a program here. They sent somebody out to go through the program and watch it, and they were very excited about it and approached us, and they really wanted to come out and see the program, and they wanted to video it, and they wanted to put it on the program. And of course, we watched their program and we thought it would be something that would be very educational to the public, and let the public see one of the programs that we do that we think is successful. So we agreed to let them do that. And what we usually do is we get recommendations from the friends and family, and they come to us and say, you know, we have a child that has a problem or a juvenile, and they tell us what's going on with that juvenile. If he is not already in the juvenile justice system, you know, if he's not arrested or in front of the juvenile court or on probation or parole, we'll allow him to come through the program. And we pretty much like our jurisdictions, City of Suffolk, Isle of Wight, and Franklin, to be first, and then anybody that's outside of those jurisdictions, if we have some space, we'll allow them to come. And basically the parent will contact us and say they're interested in coming through. We have a little application we send to them. They fill that out, and once we get it returned, we screen the application to make sure that that person we think would be good come through the program.
Right.
And then they come on a weekend. We do it one weekend out of every month, and they come. They have to bring a parent with them, and from the beginning we separate them from their parent, and then they go through the program. The inmates that are involved in the program are screened as well, and the staff that participate in the program and supervise it are trained in certain areas so that to make this program more successful.
Correct.
And it works really well. Most of the inmates they all want to be in the program. They volunteer, and they are really enthusiastic about it. Most of them have children and don't want the kids coming through the program to end up like they have in the facility.
Right.
And it gets very emotional at times. The inmates, you know, are given some general rules that they have to abide by, but what you see and what you saw on the program, about 95% of that is actually how the program goes every time. So, and we think it's successful. There's a large demand for it, and if there wasn't a demand, we certainly wouldn't be doing the program.
Correct.
So,
there you go. Now, of course, I guess we talked off camera before we started taping the fact that this has kind of brought some notoriety to the facility with the fact that you're getting more requests for parents or relatives that want to put children into the program. If someone is watching the show, and I don't mean to add to the waiting list, but and wanted to get more information on that, who could they reach out to find out about that?
They could call the facility here at the number. We have a website, WTRJ.org, and they could go to the website, call the general number, and they could speak with Captain Lewis. He coordinates the program, and I will tell you right now, there's a several-month waiting list.
Right. We don't want to.
And we do give preference to people who are from the city of Suffolk, the County Isle of Wight, and the city of Franklin. That doesn't mean we exclude other people, but if there's openings, we allow other people as well to come through the program from other cities or counties.
We'll talk about where the facility is today. We've talked about the inmates and some of the programs that are going on here and the success stories as a result of those things. Again, people improving themselves to get back out into society. But any improvements going on for the facility? Yeah,
last year we began the building's 20 years old, over 20 years old, so it was time that some things be renovated here at the facility. And we are getting ready to complete the heating and air conditioning upgrade to the facility, which took almost slightly under a year to accomplish. And we were having some heating and cooling issues within the building, and we have a new system in place for that. We put in an energy efficient system which should reclaim a lot of the extra heat and cooling system, and so it should reduce the cost of the facility. It's a more green system, so that seems to be working well thus far, and they're finishing up on that. We had some radio upgrades within the facility. There's some new regulations from the FCC, and so we had to meet those. So those are being upgraded as we speak now. And we always have upgrades going on with our transportation fleet and things of that nature. So we've had some of those as well. We're looking at also renovating our kitchen within the next several months. And just some major renovations going on there, just like any old organization or building would go through. And so we're just upgrading the building, and hopefully it'll allow us to save on some energy and make us a little bit more green facility.
Sure. So. Well, Superintendent Smith, I appreciate you taking the time to spend with us today to talk about Western Tidewater Regional Jail. Any message you want to leave anybody that will be watching this segment about what goes on here at the facility, and just a parting word from you?
I would just say that we're a very open facility, and that the general public has questions. On the email or on the website, there's my email address. It's the superintendent, and they can feel free to email me. I get concerns from parents who have incarcerated children all the time, and friends and family, and we'll answer those questions. We do quite a bit of tours for different organizations and groups, and we're more than happy to do that as well. So if anybody's interested in seeing the facility, they can feel free to call, and we'll open our doors and welcome them and show them what we do here at Western Tidewater Regional Jail.
Okay. Well, thanks again. We appreciate the time.
Huh?
Thanks for watching this edition of On the Scene. We'll see you next time.